Hello, and welcome to another fully live and unpredictable episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie, and today we have my good friend and fellow Verona's coworker, Killian, on to talk about the security news and not necessarily do a Q&A as the title suggests. Killian, thank you for joining us today.
Great to be back. Thank you so much. Looking forward to it.
So just before we went live, I was like, I feel like I'm missing something. And then as I retweeted this on Twitter, I saw that, oh, right, I forgot to change the title from Q&A to news stream. But yes, we are going to be going over the hacker news. We will also be taking questions as we can, but we've got lots of stuff to cover this week. And also we're a little bit early this week. So that was unnecessary as it turns out, but that's okay. We're starting a little early and we'll still be streaming through the time that we say that we're going to. So I wanted to take a little bit of extra time to do a little live demo because those always work so incredibly well. So we're going to be using the Flipper today to replicate a little bit of a video that Killian showed me earlier in the week. And frankly, what was so cool about it was the ability to get like a door open or a gate open just by kind of being in the right area and using this really awesome tool. So, Killian, I'm gonna pull up the video. Do you want to mention what this video was about and why you thought it was cool? I'll put it right here.
No, absolutely. So, this one's from Donut Media. So I'm a big car guy. So I'm a big consumer of YouTube, and these guys, I really enjoy their content in terms of car stuff. But they've been venturing into kind of tangential car things. And when I saw it, the first thing I thought, Kody, is this is exactly up your alley because it has all of the things that you're into. So the gist of the video is it started off because he had taken a picture of his car key and people on the internet said, no, you can't do that. Someone's going to steal your car. So one of the first things he does in the video, and you can see it here, is trying to kind of map out and 3D print a key for a car based on that picture. So that's kind of really cool. And I know, Kody, you're huge into 3D printing. So I thought, again, this is a pretty interesting take for you. And then this is part one of the video. So the second part of the video, a little bit further, is not only that, they wanted to take it even further. So thinking about, your car, if it was, you drive around the street, that's one thing if they have physical access to it. But what if it's locked in a garage? And that's kind of the second part. And this is when it blew my mind. So what they did is they have this house behind a gate locked inside of a garage. And what they do is, when I saw him pull it out, they had a Flipper Zero. And I'm like, Kody has one of these. I know he does. I've seen it. Where they, and you can see him here in the video, use it to capture the signal of them opening the gate. So to get past that and then into the garage to then get physical access to steal the car. So this is really a pretty interesting multi-stage type of attack that's done with, stuff that's readily available. And it gets into a little bit more of the detail here, but as you can see, he's successful. He does get in and succeed. So obviously, please don't do this. They have a disclaimer if you're watching the video that, this is all bad stuff that you don't try it at home. But the other part that I forgot to mention too, Kody, that was really cool is kind of in the middle of the video, if you stop to watch it, he doesn't know where the car is going to be at. So he uses some OSINT. And I know that's something that you're an expert on, you teach people about. So from the picture they had, he was able to kind of run it through the Google reverse image filter to find the actual location of the house before carrying out the stages of the attack. So just an interesting kind of mix of social media and a number of different, physical attacks, wireless attacks, OSINT, to kind of carry out this full entire attack lifecycle, really, in the physical world, which is something a little bit different than we typically talk about. But again, it's the dangers of kind of a fully connected environment. So cool stuff.
Yeah, no. So what I love about this is there's two different levels of security that they have to get through in order to grab this car. First, they need to make a physical copy of the key, and they go through what it's like to copy just like a normal lower security key, and then explain how some of these higher security keys work. Now, they were not using a key with a transponder as most modern cars have. So you might notice that the car that they're attacking in this isn't a luxury car. They're going after an older model car that does not have an electronic lock that recognizes a transponder. So there's a couple of things to note here, just in terms of like security and like real world checks.
Mhm.
This is a hacker's take on this video.
Sure. Yeah.
So I like the key thing I thought was great because they didn't try to like break into this car. Like this attack would not work against this car. It wouldn't
Sure. Yeah.
against like most of the cars you see in this video, except the one that they're targeting is like an older car where that sort of key duplication would work. Now, what
Mhm.
they're looking at doing is like actually copying the key bidding and then making use of it themselves. And what I love is there was actually a company called Kimi. I don't know how did you ever see those kiosks in grocery stores that
Yeah.
like the big green ones that says like Kimi.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm actually thinking of the Coinstar ones when I say green. But
Right.
either way, it lets you plug in your key. It takes a digital copy of the key bidding, figures out the blank, and then cuts it for you. And it also
Yep.
saves it to a database and then allows you to order these keys to your home in the future. So
Mhm.
obviously, if you just put in your key and suddenly it can make infinite copies of your key,
Right.
obviously keys are not that secure, you know? And what's funny is this service shut down. Like I haven't seen any active Kimi
Yeah.
machines like for a good couple years. So I think something happened. Like I think that either people started using them abusively, because really I could just go get a big roll of keys and say do not
Right.
duplicate all over them, plug them into this machine and make infinite copies. So it's
Right.
no secret that just standard door keys, like even like older car keys, are super easy to duplicate. But what I
Mhm.
love is they actually did it with like 3D printed material, which is much harder to
Yeah.
do because it tends to break or it tends to otherwise like, you know, like have issues that could cause it to break off in the cylinder. I wonder what plastic they use. They probably mentioned here. But yeah, the fact they could get it to turn properly in a car is great. If they were getting into a hot car, I would be a little bit more worried because the plastic would start to soften and melt and
Sure.
maybe be a little harder to work with. But all right, so on to the other part of the video. So when it comes to capturing radio signals, they were able to kind of hang out nearby and use the Flipper Zero to capture a signal and then open a door. Now, this works in a couple of different ways. And I unfortunately have to say, I don't think that what they're showing would actually work unless it was an older model of garage door opener.
Right.
And I'm missing something. So let me explain why I think they might have fudged this part of the video. Because if it were me making this video, I would either fudge it or like preferentially select like what technology I'm using in order to make this look a little cooler.
Mhm.
I don't mean to like like accuse anyone, but all right. So garage door opener, most garage door openers use what's called a rolling code, which means if I was able to take the garage door opener, like take it away from the garage door and click it like 15 or 16 times and save all those codes into my flipper, that would work
Right.
because the garage door hasn't seen these codes before, so it hasn't locked them out. And because the like clicker is doing it incrementally, it won't use those codes. So because these are all kind of one-time codes, they're rolling codes, a lot of different devices will allow older rolling codes to be used again, provided they haven't been used a first time. But the
Right.
problem here is you need physical access to the clicker, the radio transmitter, and you can either like wrap it in tinfoil and then like click it and capture with the flipper, or you can
Mhm.
just walk away a ways, and then this attack would work. But if you were just sitting in a truck and then somebody used a rolling code and you captured it, that would not allow you access to the door. So I just want to mention the majority of garage door openers, especially on a nice house like this, will use a rolling code and will not actually be vulnerable to this sort of attack. So a little bit of a dramatization here potentially, but you know it's not too bad. So I want to show you how this attack actually works with a system that is vulnerable to it. So let's go ahead and show that off. One of the things I really love about Flipper is they have this Q Flipper app. Look at that flipper working hard away.
Mhm.
And the Q Flipper app allows you to pull up the screen of the flipper on your device. So like right now I'm running Mac OS, but I have my little flipper connected. Can I make this bigger? No, I guess this is as big as it gets. So that's, you guys will have to live with that. Sorry. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start interacting with my flipper from my Q Flipper app, which again, extremely cool. So this is Flipper Zero. From the home page, I can see it's working. I can press the middle button to go through all the various different things I can do. I find that the flipper mostly tends to be useful with infrared and then sub-gigahertz radio. I find that those are the most common ones I use. NFC does work, and it's something you can always do. You can always walk up to a door and you know, grab a door code to potentially then be able to grab a key and decode
Mhm.
it. But you can't just, I mean, it's not as straightforward as a lot of people think. And that's why it's kind of an underused feature. I have literally never used the I button I've never seen an I button since this came out, and I have looked hard. So I'm still fascinated by the inclusion of the I button because it's just so rare, at least on the West Coast of the United States. We've also got 125 kilohertz RFID. Use that maybe once or twice, but really the money is in the sub gigahertz radio. That is why I love this product, and there's so many cool things. So let's go through the oh, and also hello to everyone in the chat. I do see you. We're not doing a Q&A today, so I'll get to your questions when I can, but I just want to acknowledge I do see your comments. And yes, this is currently about the flipper. So I got a flipper. I'm going to be using it to show off how this YouTube video would be possible, in which Donut kind of is able to get into a garage door. So I was just mentioning that, you know, this might not be possible for everything, but it is possible for something. So let's say that you've got a little remote control like I have right here for like a toy. In this case, I have a drone gift dropper that I got on Amazon, straight from Ukraine. And it is the little thing that goes on the bottom of a drone. And when I press a button, it opens a servo and allows me to drop a gift to whatever birthday recipient is below me. Very cool. So in order to copy this, I could do something that allows me to just scan for signal spikes. So I don't know what frequency this is operating on. I don't know really like where this is operating. So if I go to the frequency analyzer, it'll just start listening for signal spikes. And you could be sitting in a restaurant, for example, where they use those like buzzers in order to like set off a pager to let you know that your food is ready. Or you could be sitting in a restaurant where they have a button to call a server, and you'll find that a signal spike will happen when you press that button, which will tell you the frequency. So I'm going to press the button, and let's see. There we go. 433.119 megahertz. So it's as simple as that. Actually, I had this buzz in my pocket one time when I was leaving a restaurant, and I realized they had one of those door chimes that chimes every time you go in and out. Now, devices like I just described will not have a rolling code. They will transmit the same code every time. So provided you copy it properly, you can replay it over and over. And that's why, like, if I were doing this on a real garage door opener, it would be doing a rolling code, and I would only be able to capture it once. So let's go ahead and then change over. I think I can just hold down one of these buttons and it takes me automatically. No, I think that's a modification. So there's a lot of different mods you can do to your flipper to get it to do special and interesting things. And one of them was a shortcut where when you detect a frequency, it automatically like opens up the capture menu. But I'll show you the manual way just so that we can do that more easily. So, all right, so we now know that our frequency is, again, please remind me, 433.819. So I'm going to go up to raw capture or read raw, press the side button, and then I need to select 433. Okay, so this is pretty close, but there's a lot of other frequencies that it supports. So I can go up, I can go down, but it's really important to make sure you're listening on the right frequency, because if you like are listening on the wrong frequency and try to capture something, it's obviously never going to work. So step one, figure out the frequency the target's on. In this case, 433.8.9, like the dot doesn't really matter. It's really the main frequency that does. So the modulation, we might have to play with this a little bit in order to get it to capture it automatically, but this should work against just about anything that's not using rolling code. Even if it's not supported by Flipper in terms of it recognizing the protocol, it'll still be able to capture and replay based on this. So I've got this drone controller. Let's see, I'm gonna send a signal. Yep, it's operating. I'm going to then send the open signal as soon as I go back. All right, so we're set to 433.92. I'm going to press record, and then I'm going to press the open signal. Okay, so you heard the little drone thing open. I'm going to close it now. And we have this signal spike right here, which implies that we did, in fact, capture something. So I'm going to go ahead and press save. And I'm going to name it, oh my gosh, what am I going to name it? AAAA, so I can find it. All right. So now I've found and captured a signal. Now the only thing left to do is try to replay it. So I have my little thing right here. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to saved, and I have lots of saved signals. There we go, AAAA. So I'm going to select that, and then I'm not pressing the button for the remote now. I'm just using the flipper. I'm going to send the signal again. There we go. And it opened. So that is pretty cool. So
Mhm.
there's an even faster way of doing this. If the signal that you are trying to capture is supported, you can just do, instead of read raw, you can do read. And if you are using a device that is supported by Flipper, like it recognizes the protocol, it should automatically be able to grab it. See, in this case, it was able to identify the protocol that it's using. Yep. And it was able to actually like capture it and give me more contextual information. Like here, I can see the key, all this value, like all this other stuff. I can save it and I can replay it from here too. Now, if the frequency that you're trying to capture is supported by Flipper, this is the best way to do it because it'll save just the actual data instead of the raw signal. So like with this attack, we're actually decoding the signal and just saving those bytes and then replaying them manually. Whereas with the first one, we're literally just recording the radio spectrum for a second and then playing that recording back with no knowledge of what's inside. So cool radio frequency stuff, right? Like for the Flipper Zero to be able to just capture things that you bump into when you're walking around that go off. Like, I think that this is like a really highly engaging and super fun way of interacting with the world around you. So little fun Flipper Zero demo. I'll try to do more if you guys have any questions about like features with the Flipper that you want to see covered more, because frankly, like I love this little tool. I think it's super fun and I've had a lot of fun learning how to use all the various things it does, except the I button. I don't like the I button. I've never gotten to use it. I don't know why they included it, but if I find an I button and I get to hack the hell out of it, I guess then that makes sense. I would say the number one thing I still use on this is infrared. Honestly, being able to interact with like infrared devices around you is so incredibly funny, and there's no security at all. So like changing the TV in public places is still like my personal favorite thing to do. But yeah, so check it out if you haven't already checked out some of these great like Flipper applications. If you have one and you want to know what you can do with it, then walking around and letting it identify radio frequency devices you might be able to copy. Let me just say, there was a hotel I stayed in that had a door chime, and I mashed that thing real good before I figured out what I was actually capturing. I was just like, why people keep coming and going? I was like, oh, it's me. I'm doing that. It's the door chime that I copied. So yeah, very fun. All right, cool. So that will conclude our Flipper demo for today, unless you guys have another thought on it. Again, very, very cool video by Donut. I just want to set your expectations reasonably when it comes to what sorts of things you can actually capture with the Flipper Zero. I would go get my like garage door opener and show you guys, but trust me, it doesn't work. Actually, what's interesting is if you want to use Flipper as a garage door opener, you can, if you have physical access to the garage door itself, you can like tap a button and put it into a pairing mode and then add the Flipper as a remote for that garage. And then the Flipper will create its own rolling code, which is validated with the garage door, and you'll have infinite access to that garage. So like rather than stealing the remote control and then cloning that, it's actually not that useful when it comes to the Flipper. Instead, creating a virtual remote control on the Flipper and then sneaking in and pressing the garage door to pair the Flipper with the garage door is actually the hacker move to do, because it means that you'll have continuous access to that garage door like forever on, which I think is like way funnier. So that's kind of how I would have modified this video. So maybe he sneaks in once he finds it, and then you know, like sinks it or whatever, or like comes up with an excuse to sneak in. And also was like, oh, I need to use the bathroom or whatever, because that's like pretty realistic, and that would have been able to do it. So my only note on this video, one part I don't think is actually possible. However, good for them, because it is remotely possible, and I can't prove that that house doesn't actually just have a very, very old garage door.
Sure.
Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about some more cool stuff. So I also just want to give a shout out to our Discord community, which is rapidly growing. Last time we were talking, some people were suggesting that I find some good hacker movies like Snowden, etc. And I was thinking, like, I actually have some good ones, but I need to go through and make like a good list. So I went through and let's see. Yes, I made a list that I'm now signed out of. But you can see I made a big list of different movies that I'm going to be going through over the next week or two in order to figure out like what are the best hacker movies to kind of like show off and I guess refer people to that are looking for either accuracy or just like a lot of fun, I guess, because it seems like they go in two different directions. So if you haven't already joined the Discord server, make sure you do so we can continue the conversation on after the stream. There's lots of high quality things like memes, for example, like this one that I posted last night. That's all I got for you. All right. On to the rest of the news. So we have a little bit of Varonis company news. I get to talk to our threat researchers, and they are incredible. Like, they find some really interesting things. But the problem is, like, a lot of these things are about our partners. So sometimes we have to be a little bit careful and sometimes take some time to put these out and make sure everything is fixed and everybody's happy before we talk about some of the things that we found. So if you don't know about Salesforce, it is a really giant company that has lots of software for managing like sales and all sorts of other interactions with customers. They're like the whole deal when it comes to like interacting with your customers as a business. And as such, there's tons of sensitive information stored in Salesforce communities and other sorts of databases. So Salesforce communities are something that are generally used to allow interaction with your customers, and they're a very popular way of doing that. But they do also tend to become stores of highly sensitive personal information. And as people shut these communities down, they don't always do them in the way that's recommended. And they might keep these around because they want access to the data later, or, you know, maybe they just like don't want to delete stuff that might need to be dredged up later and found. But what they don't generally know is that this information is actually publicly available and can be found using certain relatively simple methods. So this is the official blog post. We're actually going to be making, I hope and dream, a TikTok about this in the next week or two, just kind of breaking it down and explaining. But basically the high level is when communities are no longer needed, they're often set aside but not deactivated. And that's kind of the key to this entire thing. They're not maintained, they aren't tested against vulnerabilities, and they don't update the security measures according to newer guidelines. So as things change, these old ghost communities stay the same, but are still able to be accessed. So here's kind of how that actually happens. People will make a new community, they'll point their DNS record to the new one, but the old one will still be up there. It's just the DNS doesn't point to it anymore. So I'm like speaking with ghost sites. All right, Varonis, calm down. All right, so what you can do instead is modify the host headers of basically requesting that dormant site. And by tricking it into thinking you're allowed to see it, you can get around restrictions that are kind of like, I'm not going to say lazily, but just casually put on people accessing these communities once they've been deactivated. So it sounds kind of like specific, but this is a very common process where you'll have an old community, you'll move to a new one, and then the other one just kind of like stays there. So the whole point of this vulnerability was that lots of personal information might have been exposed because the standard guidelines for shutting these down was not being followed. There's no penalty or real problem, at least before this, for leaving a site deactivated, abandoned site without deactivating it. So this is, just kind of like an example of one of the ways where when you have tons of data online and you move it around, or like you don't keep track of it in a very exacting fashion, you get big data leaks potentially. And this is actually something that Toyota was having big problems with this week, which is going to be one of our stories later today. This is not, the Toyota thing is not specifically related to this. Like, it's not a Salesforce thing that we know of that caused the leak, but there was a lot of customer information leaked from inadvertently configured things that ended up just having it, able to be looked at by anyone online who knew where it was. So very interesting. You can read the blog post more about it and look forward to a little bit more information via a TikTok video. But you can check this out at varonis.com/Kody, Kody, if you want to see more about this disclosure this week. I believe some people may go hunting ghost sites, ghost site hunters, as it were.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting one because this falls very much into like this security by obscurity type of category where, we'll just change the DNS. It's fine. It doesn't point there anymore. And I don't know, Kody, I probably in your research, you see this a lot. I almost liken it to like, oh, we're just not going to broadcast the SID of the network. You know what I mean? Like it's if we want to do a real world parallel, connect back to radio frequencies, well, it's still there. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. Like, and I don't know, I feel like a lot of the time when we talk about these like breaches and we're like, oh yeah, a misconfigured thing like caused this to be exposed and someone downloaded it. It's like, it's barely a breach at that point. I mean, it's definitely a data breach, but it's like not someone breaching your data specifically. It's like you accidentally left your data open and didn't know about it. So yeah, this is not an attack. It's simply a very common misconfiguration, which I think is interesting because a lot of
Right.
these news stories actually spring from that sort of thing. Also got a lot of questions. Again, I accidentally forgot to update the title. This is our new segment, but I will answer what questions I can. And here's a really good one. Is the Flipper still the most advanced radio frequency hacking device, or is there a more recent one or one in the works that you know of? So I know that Flipper is making a Flipper 1, which appears to be like a Linux device instead of a microcontroller device, which sounds really cool. I know that if I was hacking like radio stuff, I would be looking at a Hack RF1, but those are even more expensive than the Flipper. I would just say that like when it comes to RF hacking, like yes, there are definitely more advanced things out there. For also the same thing for like NFC hacking stuff. It really like it. So okay, so you have something like the Flipper that's a general tool. It doesn't really do a deep dive into any specific thing, but it offers a huge palette of like samplers that are highly applicable, and you can use them pretty often in the real world. If you're looking at doing modular stuff, it probably has the best community of people who are modding it and doing weird and unusual things with it. I would point you to the Flipper Gore channel, where people have just ripped apart their Flippers and like showed what crazy mods they've tried to make to it that ended up like either destroying it or causing them to have to disassemble it almost completely. There's an extremely active community of people around the Flipper, and I think that's kind of what like brings it a lot of its value. So I would still say Flipper's like the best general tool, but for advanced stuff, the Hack RF1, and then I've also for NFC seen like the Chameleon Mini. Those are both tools that I've also heard good things about. And I've personally tested the Hack RF1, and it works really great for radio frequency stuff. So yeah, it's just not like the Flipper's just not as much of a deep dive into any one particular thing. So that is why I would say there's definitely things that will be more powerful. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into the news. We're going to go through it a little fast this week. So one of them is malicious Chrome extensions with 75 million installs were removed from the web store. So this seems to be mostly adware, but what is interesting is that the security researcher here reported it and did a write-up on it, and then they finally got this like removed after I think a third-party company like stepped in and like actually Avast, here we go. Avast reported the extensions to Google after confirming their malicious nature. So this was actually like, it was known that these were doing like suspicious things. Auto skip for YouTube, Sound Boost, Crystal Ad Block, Brisk VPN, Clipboard Helper, Maxi Refresher. There are a lot of users who were using these extensions. So the problem is two things. One, a security researcher reported this and did a write-up on it, and like they were still available for a good amount of time. It took another company stepping in and reporting it to Google directly in order for them to actually be taken down. Problem is also that just deleting them, I believe, the removal from the extensions from the web store does not automatically deactivate or uninstall them from browsers. So you have to manually remove them in order to eliminate the risk. So don't just go and remove these from the Chrome store, or rather, sorry, the removal of them from the Chrome store does not automatically get them off of your device. If you have this on your device, you need to go and remove it manually. So just because you don't see it in the Chrome store anymore, like doesn't mean that it's been uninstalled from your computer. So if you have this on your computer, get it off. You don't want it. It can do, it has a lot of capabilities that could be very problematic. All right, next up, Harvard Pilgrim Health ransomware. So this was a ransomware attack, hits 2.5 million people. And this is like highly sensitive information. This is healthcare information. This is also ransomware plus data exfiltration. So a double exploitation attack where they're trying to get paid to delete the data that they stole and also get paid to restore the data that has been encrypted. So this is full names, physical addresses, date of births, health insurance account information, social security numbers, provider taxpayer identification numbers, and then clinical information. That's going to be medical history, diagnosis, treatment, dates of service, and provider names. That sucks. That's a ton of the most sensitive medical information you can really have. So the
interesting thing about this too is that that you can see it right at the bottom. No ransomware group claimed responsibility. Like this seems like it's one that somebody would want to claim credit for.
sometimes like these ransomware affiliates will be using a tool that they bought and they'll hit someone that's just way too hot, and like
Yeah, that's true.
their tool goes off and they end up with the data and the attack goes forward, but like they realize who they've hit and they're like, oh my god, like this is way much more trouble than
Right.
it's worth. Like so, like you know, we've seen that before where like there was a
Yeah.
ransomware affiliate that walked away from like the San Francisco public transit
Yep.
system after
Hmm.
they hit it and took it down, and they were just like, oh my god, oops. And they just like, instead of sending over the key and being like, I'm sorry, they just walked away from the whole situation. So
Yeah.
it could be a situation like that, or it could be playing out behind closed doors and going
True.
well for the ransomware attackers. In which case, if it were a double exploitation attack, like the whole thing is that they're paying to reduce reputational damage. So
Right.
taking a light touch on like claiming responsibility
Hmm.
might be key to actually getting that ransom. If
Right.
the ransomware actors are trying to reduce the reputational damage to this organization that's been hit.
Yeah, it's almost like a good faith negotiation tactic. Like, we're not gonna, tell them
Tank
who
your
you got
share
it. Yeah.
price.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if it is like a notorious ransomware group, then like obviously that might add some weight and further like problems to the whole
Sure.
negotiation process. So, all right, next up, Russia is accusing the United States of hacking thousands of iPhones in a zero-click attack.
Hmm.
This is a Russian cybersecurity firm, Kaspersky, which says that some iPhones on its networks were hacked using an iOS vulnerability that installed malware via an iMessage zero-click exploit. So
Hmm.
zero-click exploit means that like through no fault of your own, you are infected. It basically means like something either happens in the background or just happens automatically so that you are not required to click on a link or open anything. That is a big deal because those tend to be the most expensive exploits
Right.
on the market. They really fetch a lot of money because it means you can basically infect anybody with them.
Hmm.
But once they're burned, and they are very expensive to develop. So an analysis apparently showed that the infection did a lot of work to try to hide itself and like
Hmm.
obfuscate itself, but it was still able to be detected by like unusual network traffic and a couple other things that were able to kind of tip people off that it was infected. It did a number of things like fetching subsequent stages from the attack server to keep its most secret things private, and privilege escalation exploits. So
Hmm.
this is a lot of highly sophisticated stuff. Like iOS
Yeah.
is not an easy target, and most professional threat actors will hold back their later stages that have all the capabilities of the malware and other things that they don't want getting leaked until the very last moment. So when
Right.
they basically confirmed that this is an ideal environment and infected it with some sort of loader, only then will they start downloading the part of the malware that actually has sensitive information in it or could be more easily attributed to a particular threat actor. So Russia is accusing the NSA of these attacks, which honestly probably sounds pretty likely. I don't put a lot of stock in like Russian accusations
Sure.
like at this point, but this is kind of what the NSA specializes in, honestly. And what the NSA is what Russia is accusing the NSA of doing is working with Apple to develop these backdoors and deploy them. I think that that's giving them a lot of credit. But who knows? Like I really can't speculate on this. It is an interesting example of how something that we typically attribute to like mercenary groups
Right.
can also be done by like nation state threat actors. And in this case,
Hmm.
Russia is doing its best to call out the NSA as being potentially behind these specific attacks against Kaspersky network iPhones.
I with something like this, you'd think, because we see this stuff all the time with some of the, like you said, the mercenary groups or the organizations that sell these types of things to nation states. So um, I'm not saying that it's not completely true, but this feels like, I don't know, not that the attack didn't happen, but attributing it to the U.S. government seems like
Optimistic.
yes, that's the word I was looking for. The other thing too is Apple's pretty staunch about not like about protecting privacy. I mean, even if we think about some of the court cases from the last few years where they either don't have the ability to give like keys or credentials to decrypt phones. We saw that with a couple of the court cases where the U.S. went to court to get Apple to help decrypt something, and they said we can't, and
Yeah.
they ended up relying on a third party vendor who had something like this to bypass the security control. So I think the reputational damage for Apple would be astronomical if they got caught. So I don't know. That doesn't smell right to me. I don't know. It's pure speculation, but uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
same here. I really feel like in my mind, it would be much more likely that the NSA found something and just didn't share it because they wanted to use it
Right.
first. All right, so next up we have Google is tripling the reward for Chrome Sandbox escape chain exploits. So this is something we've seen a number of times as being pretty devastating. The ability to escape a sandbox and then execute code arbitrarily or modify a system is a huge problem for Google. So as the maintainer of Chrome, it means that that's a pretty core problem for them to try to fix. And as a result, they are amping up the ability for people to earn money, exploring this problem and finding interesting escapes. So obviously with with these sorts of like third party like mercenary groups out there, it's really easy for them to offer large amounts of cash for these exploits because they immediately have buyers that they can really get a large amount of value out of it. So Google offering $180,000 up to $120,000 for other exploits all around escaping the sandbox of Chrome. That's a really big deal for people who understand these sorts of attacks and might otherwise bring their talents elsewhere.
Yeah, no, this is a good story. I like seeing these. These are the types of news articles I like to report on because this is the right thing. I mean, I know they do their own testing internally and all that other good stuff, but opening it up to talented hackers and paying them a good wage to find this and disclose it responsibly. So, no, it's good.
Yeah, and it also looks like researchers who are in the space that might not be the first to report it are still eligible for rewards. So that's a really nice thing because sometimes you'll find something and then you'll be the second or third person to report it, and that always sucks. Like if you find something that's still a live vulnerability and it's in disclosure, but like it's not publicly available because like they don't want to tip anyone off to it. So I can see that as being like a discouraging thing, and it's nice that they've addressed that in the rewards. All right, next up. Exploit has been released for a Report Lab PDF library. So I have not heard of, oh my God, I love this picture. He's so upset. So Report Lab is a PDF library that has been installed in 3.5, has been used approximately 3.5 million downloads. Is this per month? Okay, I should
yes.
that.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is a lot, which means it's being used in tons of products. And generally what this is used to do is to generate a PDF format of like some other type of format. Kind of getting into the weeds here, but what is actually happening behind this exploit is that it's able to create arbitrary, it looks like they're able to create arbitrary like files in like a TMP directory or basically anywhere else on the system where they want to. So this is a pretty serious vulnerability, and it seems like it's also kind of an unpatching of a previously patched vulnerability, which is something we see pretty commonly. This is mostly notable just because of how popular this library is and how much software it's embedded in. It's not like a Log4j style thing, but it is still a pretty substantial library that has been found to have a vulnerability that is exploitable. So we also have Amazon. So we know that Amazon products are invasive and that they, gobble up like data, especially Ring products, which are located outside, inside, and around people's homes. These sorts of like video doorbells and personal assistants go in tons of sensitive places, and they are privy to lots of sensitive conversations. And they have been fined. Amazon has been fined for actually a variety of different things. They had a number of contractors who did not limit or they did not have limits to their access to data. And that meant that they were able to see video feeds of the insides of customers' homes and access this on numerous occasions. Full access to every customer video, regardless of whether the employer contractor actually needed that access to perform his job or job function. So that means anybody who was in this department could have gone through tons of video recordings of female users in private spaces like bathrooms and bedrooms over several months. This was unnoticed by this company's security team until another employee discovered it and reported it. So they didn't even find it with their own audit. They eventually had someone who was using the system just report that it was ridiculous that they had so much access. They were also fined for gathering data about children. So gathering and processing information about children is a big no-no, and $25 million of this fine was dedicated to basically instructing them to delete the children's data per their parents' request, and also stop processing children's data to train its algorithms and require deleting inactive child accounts and linked voice recordings. So it seems like they were using geolocation data and children's voice recordings to train their algorithms, which is obviously not necessarily what people were signing up for when they got an Alexa. So the fact that like Amazon was increasing its company value of its algorithms by training it on like your children's voices might be kind of disturbing to a lot of users. So there's a lot behind this fine. It is a pretty big fine, but not for Amazon. So when it comes to user privacy, I feel like this is really kind of a slap on the wrist when it comes to how much value they could possibly be able to generate with the data that they've been able to scoop up from these products.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is this is the US FTC. I mean, depends on where particularly they have done this. Like this could potentially be, you know, like a CCPA violation, or if people in Europe were using a GDPR, for a number of reasons. One, you know, you don't have that privacy by design. Like it's not controlled, right? It's the data or the access is not limited to just people who need it for whatever they're doing. It's also not being used for the reason it was collected, which is part of GDPR and a number of the other privacy regulations too. So this, again, I don't know the specifics of it, but this is the US FTC. There could be potentially even more fines coming for this if there are European folks caught up in this or Californians, because this could be a privacy nightmare. And that just kind of goes back to something that I, at least, you know, I'm passionate about. We're passionate about is like, again, controlling that access, limiting the data, and just making sure, because it's just too easy to say, you know, open it up to everybody.
Yeah. And the fact that like every employee in this department had access to every customer video,
right?
And there was no monitoring of like what they were accessing, to make sure that it was necessary for their jobs. Like that's really bad, because you know, if you're stalking someone, you could have one buddy that works at Amazon and get like omnipotent access to, you know, their neighbor's Ring camera. It doesn't even need to be that specific person's information. It could be the people around them or people close to them that allow them to be surveilled. Like it's just really creepy, the amount of information you can infer from what these products are gobbling up and how little oversight there was for who could access the data. All right, so we got a new release of Kali Linux. The biggest part of the story is that there is a pre-built version for Hyper-V images. So if you're someone that just likes to virtualize everything and you don't even have an operating system, you just got Hyper-V. Well, guess what? You can run your Hyper-V image and as well as 13 new tools on the new version of Kali Linux. So I've not been using Hyper-V, so that's a little bit less exciting to me. But if you're someone that does, then that's very cool. And they mention it, I think, like no less than 3 or 4 times in this article. There's a couple other changes. They're using Pipewire instead of, oh my God, what was the old audio? I don't remember, but whatever the old audio system was, they're using Pipewire instead. Pulse Audio. Yeah, they've updated from Pulse Audio to Pipewire. There is an i3 desktop overhaul, desktop updates, GNOME 44, icons and menus updates, new tools. Let's go into those. So one of them is, I always love trying to pronounce these. All right, so Evil Genex. Standalone man-in-the-middle attack framework used for phishing login credentials, as well as session cookies, allows bypassing of 2-factor authentication. This is really the one that I'm most excited about.
So I know that one because we've used it in a number of attack labs that we've run.
Cool.
That's one of the pieces, and actually it's really cool. I'm excited because we do use Kali Linux in a bunch of those attack labs that our research and threat teams have developed. And maybe I always say Evil Ginks, but maybe that's incorrect. I don't know.
I've heard that it's pronounced like Nginx, so I'm just going off of that, and I as not a power user have no idea. But yeah, we can also see there's some like Kubernetes stuff, which obviously like that's become a big security front, and like I imagine there's a lot of demand for that. We have our Go Fish open source phishing toolkit, Humble fast security oriented HTTP header analyzer, SlimKit, SciFit, Terraform. That's for infrastructure hacking, runtime environment scale, the Hive, scalable open source free security incident response platform. Yeah, so I've heard of the Hive before. A lot of these I've heard on just like general like boards talking about new security tools. So it's cool to see that some of these are now included in Kali Linux. Generic and extendable web dev server based on WSGI, web server gateway interface. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so interested to see like what this. Okay, cool. I was right about Pulse Audio. Okay, cool. Yeah, so interesting to see what updates they chose to push with this version. Again, I don't use Hyper-V, but it seems like that is a big deal. I'll definitely be trying this out though, especially on like if they have a version that's been pushed for like ARM. I'm going to be trying them out on my Raspberry Pis because that's usually the way that I'm using Kali Linux. So looking forward to trying that out. If you guys try it out and you find any interesting new tools or updates that are worth talking about, make sure that it's either in the chat or on any of our comments or the Discord server. Oh yeah, I made a new link for the Discord server, you guys. If you want to join it now, you can just go to, I'm going to test this live. You can go to...
You're living on the edge today. We did a live Flipper demo. Now we're doing a live Discord test.
Nugget.lol. Does it go to Discord? Yeah, it does. So if you want to join our Discord server, you can go to nugget.lol, nugget.lol. So this one's kind of funny. Got to go through it kind of fast. This is somebody selling promoting a tool called Terminator, which is supposed to get around all these like antivirus things and like evade all this stuff, but it's basically just a vulnerable driver that can be used to initiate an attack. So this is called a BYOVD. At a certain point, like the acronyms barely make sense, but bring your own vulnerable driver, where they drop a driver that is vulnerable, but not necessarily malicious in and of itself, and then they exploit it. So, I mean, it's pretty simple. You install a thing that's vulnerable, and then you attack it, and then you use its known capabilities to attack all this other stuff. So the whole reason why it's not being detected isn't because it's a malicious file. It is a signed and valid like driver. It's just vulnerable. So a couple different services do detect this as vulnerable.
Yeah.
But because it's not inherently malicious, it's kind of a funny workaround where they're selling this exploit for up to $3,000, saying that it's like this advanced attack that like evades all these like scanners. But really, it is not doing anything fancy. It is just installing something vulnerable and then attacking it. So kind of a funny. Yes, thank you. I see I was actually getting some help from the audience on Pulse Audio when I was like losing it and trying to remember what that was. Thank you very much. All right, so moving on to the next one. Toyota, as I said earlier, we were talking about how a lot of these breaches are not actually somebody like bullying this company and like, you know, like breaking into their system because it was weak. No, they just like accidentally left stuff open to the public. So was this a Salesforce ghost community? We don't know because they won't say. But we will say that it was a cloud environment. And this affected the address, name, phone number, email address, customer ID, vehicle registration number, and VIN, which is not great, of cars impacted by the breach. This appeared to be in Oceania, which I believe just means Australia, and also Japan. So it doesn't seem like these were users that were in the United States for the most part. However, these were people who were subscribed to the G-Book navigation system. And this also seems to also like impact the Lexus sub-brand mostly. So this is everything, I think, from 2016 on. And they now have a system that monitors cloud configurations and databases on all its environments to regularly prevent this type of leak in the future. Don't know who it is. Hope it's us.
Yeah.
All right.
Kody, I have a question for you. Is this pre-recorded?
No, it's not pre-recorded. But every time I get this, I like to pin this comment and clown them a little bit. No, it's not pre-recorded. Although it's not the Q&A. I forgot to update the stream title before we went live. So if you have a question, obviously we'll try to answer it like, is this pre-recorded? But no, it's not pre-recorded. And now you know. All right.
Or maybe it is. Maybe we can just see the future and we anticipated this question.
Yeah, that would really be a new level of planning, because we do get this question a couple times like every stream. All right, so next up, gamers, hide yourselves. There's a new rat that is specifically targeting gamers, and it's mostly posing as a legitimate remote. It's being sold under the guise of being a remote access tool for Windows 11 for $15 a month or a single lifetime payment of $60. But it's not really being used that way. Instead, it is being packaged in other software targeting gamers, trying to take over the computer. So this is like a full rat. It's also using open source rats, including the Quasar rat, the R77 toolkit, and the Neural command line tool. So this is all packaging these open source projects into one product that poses as something legitimate for you to be able to access your own devices, but actually is just as easily deployed against people who, I don't know, you want to steal their game pennies or whatever, steal their suits, steal their Pokemans, whatever it is you gamers are up to nowadays. They're after it. So actually, it seems like it always kind of ends in crypto, like, you know, when
Right.
people attack gamers. So um, interesting kind of like combination of open source tools that anybody could go get and use that is
Sure.
then being published as a service where you're just paying $15 a month to have access to this, and then have a dashboard that lets you access devices that you've infected.
Mm-hmm.
So sketchy, very sketchy.
Yeah.
Next up, WordPress is done with you ignoring their pleas to install a critical Jetpack patch on 5 million sites. And rather than allowing your laziness to create a botnet, they have pushed the patch themselves. That's really the long and short of the story.
Yeah.
They're tired. They're just tired of waiting. So there are 5 million active installations of this plugin that they are attempting to patch. And yeah, it now appears that they are done with that, and they have simply pushed out the patch. This is not the first time that they have done that. And yeah, it's just one of the ways these vendors are having to eventually just be like, all right, we need to find a way to bypass like the control that users typically have over updates on their servers, because this is just not going to work for us to have like a whole botnet hosted on our websites.
Right. I mean, it's not unprecedented either. If you think about some of the Exchange vulnerabilities from a few years ago, I believe that eventually, it might have even been the FBI, but like they were forced to go and basically like force the patch down or compromise the system and patch it because it was posing such a massive risk that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. All right. So next up, we have the rom-com malware. Come on, you guys. Where are you coming up with this? So this is spreading via Google Ads for ChatGPT, GIMP, and more. And I have been seeing this happening so much, you guys. So this will be malicious extensions or like other things that'll be like, oh, get a Chrome extension that lets you do like ChatGPT, or download ChatGPT to your browser.
Right.
It's so bad. It's so bad that these continue to be like listed at the top. But unfortunately, if you are looking for nonsense things like ChatGPT download, which again, like how would you even do that? How would you pull that off? I'm going to try it. I just want to see what comes up if there's any like actual phishing pages. OpenAI. It looks like they've kind of cleaned this up. It used to be the Wild West, honestly. Oh, wait, here we go. Sorry, you're going to watch my poor computer get infected live on the stream. ChatGPT app. Yes, I can download the APK file for ChatGPT. It makes easy for everyone to... I'm sorry. It makes easy for everyone to access a smart artificial-based chatbot in their pocket. How can you make a grammatical mistake when you're pushing something that's going after users of ChatGPT?
Right.
Just use ChatGPT to make the phishing site.
Right.
AI-based chatbot ChatGPT very quickly gained popularity. Okay, this is one of the worst phishing sites I've seen in a long time, you guys. But man, yeah. So it's proposing that you can download and customize your ChatGPT model. You can make it do whatever you want. Apparently, download ChatGPT APK official. Okay, so basically, what is you download this and then you get the virus. What was it? The oh my gosh, the rom-com virus. So you were looking at the infection vector for the virus that this is talking about here. If you're searching for things that people are injecting malicious search results for, it's going to trick you into trying to think that you have to download something to use ChatGPT or get all those free amazing benefits of customizing your own ChatGPT by downloading this 1 megabyte file onto your computer.
Right.
As somebody who has worked with like a legitimately like leaked large language model like the Llama, it was gigabytes and it took a long time to download. And also it was taken down constantly by Meta. So you're not like, let me just say right now, you're not going to be able to download a large language model right now from a website you find on Google that actually works. It's just not going to happen. And you might download like a plugin to ChatGPT that exploits your computer. But yeah, so this is linked to Cuba ransomware. One thing you could expect is to get ransomwared if you download this. So I actually, Killian, did you get an email? And you don't have to necessarily confirm this if you think it's sensitive, but did you get an email saying that our enterprise chat GPT account was set up and ready to go and giving us a link to go sign in to it?
Oh yeah, I saw that coming a mile away. That looked
Yeah, I was
so
just like,
shady.
nice try, red team. Like,
Uh-huh.
get out of here. But actually, this has become such a prevalent attack that
Yeah.
our red team at our company, with or an outside threat actor that we all laughed off, actually
Right.
was hitting us with like Chat GPT style phishing attacks, because these are off the charts effective and they are really
Hmm.
starting to impact a lot of users. So as people find out like more and more about like these large language models and how
Hmm.
useful they are, they're going to try to go and find like a leg up and be like, I'm not going to use that version I got to pay $20 a month for. I'm going to
Right.
download it to my computer. So a quick short list of some of these things that were up and actively distributing malware were glimp.com. It's pronounced glimp, or just glump, I guess. Cozy Software, chat GPT for beta.com. And honestly, like OpenAI hasn't done a great job of like wrangling all their domains that are like part
Right.
of their stuff. So it's a little hard to determine like what are real and what are not. So this has been like surprisingly effective. And the fact that we can right now go and find a website that is clearly pushing like a phishing scheme of some sort
Hmm.
related to this means that this is a big deal. It's actively being done. You can go and find one yourself. Go get your own computer infected. But I'm gonna not click on any more links on the stream, just because. All right, so there's a new hacking forum leak. This is after raid forums got shut down. 487,000 raid forum members have had their information leaked online. This allows security researchers and threat actors to get insight into the people who were on the forum. What's interesting about this is that it seems like some of the data was stripped out. So
Interesting.
yeah, so 99% of the original lines were there, but some were moved to cause no drama. We don't really know what that means,
Ooh.
but the exposed admin who is the one who's behind the release, it says he didn't like, he's not the one that got the data, but he's publishing it for someone else, won't say who, said that some of the data was stripped out before publishing. Just kind of an interesting twist on this.
Yeah.
Kody, looks like the information is legitimate, and no one really knows exactly where this database came from at the moment,
Hmm.
but it is a way that researchers, reporters, or other people who are looking to go through this data now have a lot of information to go through talking about the
Yeah.
people who frequented this forum. Hope your OPSEC was good. All right, so we have another issue of who's getting free credit monitoring. In this case, it's the MCNA Dental organization. Let's see, Managed Care of North America has a data breach notification on its website saying 9 million patients had their personal data compromised. This is full name, address, date of birth, phone number, email, social security number, driver's license, government issued ID number, health insurance, plan information, member number, care for teeth or braces, visits, dentist name, oh my gosh, x-rays. Okay, so they've got your dental records. That's comforting, because that's one of the ways that we identify people. Notification filed with the Office of Maine Attorney General says the breach impacted 8.9 million people, including patients, parents, guardians, and guarantors. So that's a lot. And this is claimed by the Lockbit ransomware gang.
Yeah.
So that's going to mean typically a double exploitation attack. That tends to be what they do. If their actual ransom attack didn't work, then often they'll just threaten to publish the files. And in this case, it looked like the files have now been published and are available for download. So looks like the ransom did not go well for this particular ransomware operator, and now the data is out there. All right, next up. So do you like zip domains, Killian?
I don't have a strong opinion of them, but I see the potential. We're gonna talk about it here in a second for attacks.
Yeah. Yes. Is this Firefox? I'm not really sure if this is working right now, but I went ahead and grabbed the domain gerbers.zip. Now, why is this funny? It looks like the forwarding isn't quite working yet, but gerbers.zip is something that it's a very, very common file that people who do hardware, like they design printed circuit boards, have to deal with. Gerber is a specific type of file that you need to send to the manufacturer. And when you download it from the manufacturer or you send it to the manufacturer, it's typically in a format where you just zip the file, and it's almost always called gerbers.zip. So when I did a quick search of my computer for zip files, I found I had like 10 gerbers.zip file. And I was just like, you know what? If I'm going to buy a Gerber's.zip, or if I'm going to buy a .zip domain and insert myself into a bunch of people's conversations when they're just talking about this file, that to me is funny enough to actually purchase the domain. So I bought Gerber's.zip, but other people are jumping on this trend, and they are making it so that there is a fake browser archiver in a domain. So when you click on a Gerber.zip file, or sorry, on a any.zip link that is on one of these malicious domains, like setup.zip apparently, it should look as though it's attempting to unzip something. So
right.
let me see. Since we're in the mood to do live demos. Nope. Okay, I guess it's been taken down. Yeah, so the idea is that you would be able to make someone think that the browser was actually their like software, and then get it to like download or install something or do something that they wouldn't typically do. Oh yeah, here we go. So this is a version that's kind of showing what the possibility could look like, where it's trying to get you to then like download the file that it drops, saying that it's like the unzipped file, but instead it's actually just something that it wants you to install. And that is extremely funny. So people have been talking about how the .zip thing could be an issue now. This is kind of a clear-cut example of that. Just another funny way of abusing the way that messengers and all sorts of other things will create an automatic link when you post a valid domain. All right, gonna breeze through these ones. Pipel is now announcing mandatory 2FA for all software publishers. This is by the end of the year, and they ruffled some feathers by doing this before. But frankly, as a frequent supply chain attack star in our show, we really understand this move, because they have been hit so many times by maintainers either sabotaging or having their repos be breached and then pushing out malicious files to projects that use that library. This is a really big deal, and it looks like they are getting super serious about it. Some people might not like it, but it looks like they do have plenty of time to set this up. It's going to, I think they're going to need either a hardware key or an authenticator app. Instead of SMS, which I think is a good idea. All right, just a couple left. I barely understand this attack. This is a hot pixel attack, checking CPU temperature and power changes to steal data. So this seems to be using like JavaScript in websites to be able to monitor information about processing and like what's being processed, and it like gives it some like known things to process, and then like observes what changes in like the temperature and like the performance of the CPU in order to like infer what's being done. This is the most complicated story that we're covering this week. If you want to dive into it more later, I frankly struggle to be able to describe it. It's basically, as I said, it's like a side channel attack that by monitoring the temperature and the performance of the CPU, you're able to infer what it's doing, and you can leak data about other browsing sessions. It's just like, it's just a very weird attack, you guys. So it's
interesting for, I was gonna say, for like a theoretical type of attack, but then again, we just saw the very last article or two articles back, like just send them a .zip domain and let them execute whatever it is. It seems unnecessary, I guess.
yeah, definitely. All right, so we've only got, I think, 2 stories left. Let's go through them. So I use Firefox pretty often. Did you get any of those full screen VPN ads, Killian?
No, I saw that, or I read the article, but no, I didn't get any of them.
I got them, and they were annoying as hell. It was really kind of hard to like click out of them. But yeah, so they started rolling out this VPN. I can't even use a friggin' VPN at work. I immediately get locked out of my account if I use a third-party VPN. So like I've already got a VPN I'm happy with, and like I don't want it. It's also paid. So I understand that they're hoping that it's going to be like an important source of revenue for them, and I agree. Like everybody should use a VPN like under normal circumstances, but for edge cases like myself, this was not very useful and was very annoying. So it seems like they have switched off the ads. That is wonderful, because frankly they were very annoying, and I think a lot of people ended up seeing them this week. And then our last story, Blackbyte is claiming a ransomware attack against the city of Augusta, which I thought was in a completely different state. I don't know why I thought Augusta was in like Maine or Maryland or something. However, it is not. It's in Georgia. And it seems that they had 2 recent IT outages. One was apparently unrelated last week, but then another one ended up being a ransomware attack. So We're not really sure about the details here, only that Blackbyte is claiming the extortion, and that ransom demands are probably ongoing. We're not totally sure about the data that has been taken here, but there is a leaked sample of 10 gigabytes of data as proof of the breach. Let's see. So that included payroll information, contact details, personal identifiable information, physical address, contracts, city budget allocation data, and other types of information. So it seems pretty legit. We've seen a lot of cities under attack by ransomware recently. So this just seems like one of the best case scenarios, or like one of the most targeted entities for ransomware operators that have like purchased the software or like running it on behalf of like the group that have actually made it, and then are stumbling across these easy targets that frequently can be huge payouts because of the broad scope of people involved and the type of data that's breached. So lots of breach, lots of people getting free credit monitoring. Let's put a positive spin on it.
Right.
It's just raining free credit monitoring on people this week, you guys. So that's in some ways great news if your only desire is to monitor your credit. All right, so that's just about all the time we have for this week. We started a little bit early. It seems like, honestly, we could start early more often because there's like tons of stuff that we went over. And we did do a little Flipper demo. So if you are just joining us and you want to watch on replay, make sure to go back and check out the Flipper demo I did, where I showed how I could capture the signal of this Amazon drone gift dropper and have the Flipper actually open and close the little servo here by capturing the radio signal. So make sure to check that out. If you want to keep the conversation going, or if you have a question for our Q&A on Wednesday, you can always go to our Discord server at nugget.lol, the new short link that actually works. I'm so proud of myself for getting that to work. I just got tired of giving out the Discord invite over and over. So if you want to join us, make sure to drop on over to nugget.lol. And I will see you there for answering questions and also the stream next week. Killian, thank you for joining us again. I know you've been out for a while, but it's always fun to have you on the show and
happy to
help us go over the news of the week.
No, this is great. Thank you.
Cool. All right, so we will see you guys next week on the live Q&A on Wednesday. So I will see you then, and goodbye, everyone.
Take care.